one of our favorite people to interview every now and then is Project Veritas, and we're friends with James O'Keefe, who is the boss over there, the founder of it. But we've gotten to know other people there over the course of time. And they just had a huge, huge, huge story about a month ago. It was actually right after our interview walking scrum with Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, on the streets of Davos. Like a week later, James O'Keefe's Project Veritas rolls out this undercover sting operation where they got a director of some, I forget his title, at Pfizer to talk about how they were deliberately mutating viruses and like doing crazy, dangerous things with them. It was the most successful video that Project Veritas ever had. And I was in awe of them. And I've said it before, I think they are the most effective news organization in America. You don't even have to call them the most effective conservative. Who breaks more news than them? No one. So I was really worried when I started hearing rumors of James O'Keefe being fired by his own organization. How do you get fired by an organization that you founded? Do we have a clip from, I want to show you a clip. He had a 45-minute video that was posted online. I watched the whole thing, and I really felt for James O'Keefe. Here, we'll just play a little clip because I'm very worried about my favorite American news organization losing its champion, founder, chief journalist, chief fundraiser, chief gospel spreader. Like, he is the indispensable man. How do you have Project Veritas without James O'Keefe? I don't know, but he's gone from there. If you have the time, you should watch the whole 45-minute video. I found it quite sad, but here's a minute of James O'Keefe.
That tweet failed to mention that by then I had been removed from the board and indefinitely suspended as CEO. Why didn't they put that part in? This is where things get really messed up. A few days later, an officer sent an email to the board with bizarre hyperbole and innuendo about certain expenses related to our business needs. These included, and you can't make this up, that Project Veritas paid for James O'Keefe's down payment of his wedding. I got a chuckle out of this. I'm not married. I've never been married. I do hope to get married one day. In fact, I got married to you in Oklahoma, but that was pretend.
Good time.
That was fun. Everyone enjoyed it. We rented a charter bus. We all went down. Everyone enjoyed that musical, or at least I thought. I'm not married, but the truth of the expense, the $12,000, was that it was a payment for our annual Project Veritas Christmas party. Remember that? Where you guys were there? Some of you brought your spouses? The officer lied by omission, excluding the purpose of paying the $12,000 for the wedding venue. It looked like Project Veritas was reimbursing me for a wedding venue. Why would the officer lie like that?
You know what? I watched the whole thing, and part of it felt like you're watching Dirty Laundry, and I don't like that. It felt a little gossipy, but I understand why he did it, because they were smearing him. In fact, they in response to that, they put out an official statement. And I watched this whole video, and I admire James O'Keefe because he does real journalism. There's no other way to describe it. He does high-risk, high-stress journalism, sending undercover operatives to sting powerful people. It's a special skill set. He's the best at it. Extremely important stories that he covers. I'm in awe of them. And James O'Keefe has built that thing up. There's this one slide in his presentation where he shows their financials. They raised $22 million last year. In 2016, they were 4-point-something million. So in 6 years, they've more than quadrupled. They've almost quintupled. And James is the driving force behind that. And if you ever met James, and I've had the pleasure of meeting him, 4 times or something, he's got a very particular personality, and you just know that is how he finds the drive. And that's how he resists the stress. And he's not a touchy-feely guy. For all I know, he's on the spectrum or whatever they say. He is stubborn, as you would expect someone like him would be. So in his 45-minute disquisition there. He talks about, well, I should have said happy birthday to you, and maybe I was gruff to you. And yeah, okay, we get it. You're a crusading person with no time to waste, and I get, you know what? There's no one who knows Project Veritas who doesn't know what James O'Keefe is like. He is a founder. And for them to get rid of a founder, and anyway, so there's this list. Oh, by the way, you can see the financials here. It's amazing. In 10 years, to take Project Veritas from less than $1 million to 22 million. And the last few years have just been staggering. Like I say, 4-point-something million in 2016 to 22 million last year. The last few years, almost 50% growth per year. In fact, 2019 to 2020 there, if I'm looking at that correctly, like almost 100% growth. 2019, 2020, just unbelievable. Unbelievable. The reason I mention that is that Project Veritas' board, who don't even sign their put out this statement, and one of the things they're really mad about, give me 1 second here, and maybe you think I'm just coming to the aid of my buddy, and I don't want to pretend that I'm close with James O'Keefe, but I'm an admirer of his, who's had the pleasure of meeting him a few times. So he spends 300 days a year on the road raising funds. Like James O'Keefe, because he's so well known, he no longer personally does the undercover journalism because people would recognize him. So he does the hard part, which is raising the money. So he's on the road almost every day. And how do you get around America when you're on the road? Well, you use Uber. And if you've ever used Uber, you can get what's called Uber X, which is the cheapest kind of car. And it can be a crummy little car sometimes. Ubers are generally sort of clean and sort of, in good repair. But if you pay a few extra bucks, you get what's called Uber Black, which is typically a slightly fancier or more premium vehicle. So apparently one of the big beefs that Project Veritas' board has with them is that his Uber expense for the last 12 months was $100,000, which sounds shocking, right? Or 150 grand in 18 months. Okay, well, if you're traveling every single day to the airport, from the airport to a meeting, back to the hotel, back to it's going to be $100,000 a year. I know that sounds shocking, and maybe traveling Uber Black instead of crummy or Uber X, maybe that is 25% higher than it should be. All right, you're going to fire your founder, CEO, and most well-known household name guy because he used a cab company that was a little too famous? Or there's another one, $60,000 in losses by putting together dance events such as Project Veritas Experience. Obviously, it wasn't a dance event. It was like a Turning Point USA thing where they may have had a dance. Calling it a dance event is so obviously untrue. You have an annual budget of $22 million. You're trying new things. You put on an event and it loses money. Okay, so don't do it again or see how you can improve. You're firing your CEO because an event lost some money. Or the first one there, $14,000 on a charter flight to meet someone to fix his boat under the guise of meeting with a donor. James O'Keefe specifically addresses that in the video, saying no, he actually had 3 donor meetings. And if this is why you're sacking your founder, your chief journalist, your chief fundraiser, I don't believe you. I'm not here to say that every single expense James O'Keefe made was kosher. I'm not involved. I have no inside information. But if this is the worst of it, if this is all the stuff they could dig up on him, if this is their mighty response, I don't believe them. I do not believe that they fired James O'Keefe because he used Uber Black instead of Uber X. I don't believe that because that's insane, because no one would do that. And by the way, I don't think a donor would say, I'm outraged that your CEO took Uber Black instead of Uber. I just don't believe that. I think there's a collateral purpose, a hidden purpose, that they're getting rid of him for some other reason they're not stating. And James O'Keefe has bruited the idea that it has to do with the Pfizer investigation. I don't know. He himself says he's speculating because none of it makes sense. Oh, he's really brusque with staff and he's not gentle with staff. I'm sure that's true, by the way. And I'm sure that is not a surprise to his donors or, frankly, his staff, who learn a lot from him. And if they don't like it, they can move on. No one's a slave. I think James O'Keefe is pound for pound the most effective journalist in America, period. You can add the word conservative in there if you like, but frankly, how is exposing Pfizer conservative or liberal? It's just anti-corruption. How is exposing, like they expose so many different people. I don't even think it's a right-left thing. I think he has more scoops than the New York Times. It's obviously not true numerically, but it's incredible what he's done with his small team. I think it's an inside job. I think they're trying to get rid of him, undermine him, but I don't think it's going to work. I think his reputation is so strong and so widespread that if he pops up with some new organization, no matter what it's called, I don't think it should be called JamesO'Keefe.com because it's bigger than him. I don't think he would name it that. In fact, he didn't. He named his company Project Veritas. I think that 90% of the donors from Project Veritas will leave and go and find him wherever he is next. I don't know. I'm sorry to see this kind of infighting, and I'm sorry to see this kind of airing of dirty laundry. But if this is the best rationale that unnamed board members on Project Veritas can come up with, I just don't find it convincing. I hope that in his new organization, which I think James O'Keefe is going to start, that he has some form of control of the organization so this can't happen to him again. Of course you want outside eyes on the finances, and as a registered IRS charity, they're audited by external auditors. So I think they already have some of that. And of course you want your donors to be able to look over how you're spending money and for them to be able to decide, okay, James, you used Uber X. I'm not going to give you money for your exposés because you drove in a Uber Black instead of Uber X. I just don't believe that any grown-up would say, fire him over that. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. You didn't ride in the crummy Camry. You went in a town car. Therefore, you're fine. I don't believe that. I don't believe that as an excuse. I don't believe a single donor said that. And if they said that, well, they can stop giving money. Something else is afoot here. But I believe that James O'Keefe will rise again. I believe it will happen quite quickly. And I believe that there are very, very few people who are just there for Project Veritas without James O'Keefe. Some people wrote to me and said, hey, Ezra, you should make an offer to James O'Keefe. Well, first of all, we don't have enough dough. Second of all, we're based in Canada, and he is focused almost exclusively in America, if not exclusively. And third of all, I think what this shows is that he has to be his own boss. He just has to be. And by the way, I think he can be and will be.